The sensor array pinged once, a soft, routine sound that barely registered above the ambient hum of the hegemony command center. Junior Intelligence Officer Thalen glanced at his display, mandibles clicking in mild irritation. Another unscheduled contact at the edge of the restricted zone. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more HFY stories. Admiral Kethris, Thalen called across the vaulted chamber, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of his species. We have an unauthorized vessel at coordinate grid Epsilon 7, single ship, no transponder signature. Fleet Admiral Kethris didn't bother turning from the tactical hologram suspended before her command dais, and her primary eyes remained fixed on the slowly rotating projection of the border sectors, while her secondary pair shifted toward Thalen with practiced disinterest. Origin? Scanning now. Thalen's clawed fingers danced across his interface, pulling up identification protocols that had functioned flawlessly for 3 centuries. The system processed, cross-referenced, analyzed. A profile materialized. Signature matches. Sol system origin, Admiral. Sol? Kethris's translator caught the faint note of dismissal in her throat harmonics. The humans? Yes, Admiral. Thalen opened the official threat assessment file, its data crystallizing in the air before him. The header glowed with reassuring green classification markers. Intelligence File 7834-H. Species Designation Humanity. Threat Level Low Risk. A last survey conducted. He paused, compound eyes narrowing at the timestamp. 127 cycles ago. Kethris finally turned, all 4 eyes now focused on her intelligence officer. And the assessment stands? Thalen scrolled through the file. It was thorough in the way that ancient documents often were, comprehensive for its time, gathering dust in databases while the galaxy moved forward. Affirmative. Pre-faster-than-light civilization. Chemical propulsion. Primitive nuclear capabilities, fragmented political structure, no unified military command. Assessment concluded they would require a minimum of 4 to 5 centuries to achieve even basic interstellar travel. He looked up. The file recommends standard observation protocols and peaceful contact when they eventually achieve FTL capability. Then what is one of their vessels doing in the restricted zone? Kethris's dorsal crest rose slightly. Annoyance, not alarm. Unknown, Admiral. Could be a generation ship that wandered off course. Could be a probe that malfunctioned. The file does note they had ambitions toward exploration, however primitive their methods. Senior Tactical Officer Vorim approached the dais, his heavy footfalls echoing against the polished stone floor. His species, the Thoraxians, had served as the military backbone of the hegemony for half a millennium. He radiated the confidence that came with overwhelming force. Orders. Admiral. Kethris considered for precisely 3 seconds, the appropriate amount of time to demonstrate thoughtful command without appearing indecisive. Dispatch the destroyer claw of retribution. Standard intercept. Have Captain Hill-Lixar escort the vessel back to their space with a formal warning about trespassing in restricted territory. Polite but firm. We don't need diplomatic complications with a pre-FTL species, even if they somehow stumbled into FTL by accident. Single destroyer, Admiral? Vorim's question carried no challenge, merely confirmation. For a low-risk species? Kethris's crest flattened in what might have been amusement. I think 1 warship will suffice, Commander. It's likely some malfunction or navigational error. We'll escort them home, file the appropriate reports with the contact ministry, and then be done with it before the evening cycle. As you command. Vorim activated his comlink. Destroyer Claw of Retribution, this is Hegemony Command. You are cleared for intercept protocol. Single contact, Sol system origin, coordinate grid, Epsilon 7. Standard escort and warning. Command expects resolution within the hour. The acknowledgement came back crisp and professional. Captain Helixar's record was exemplary. 200 successful patrol missions without incident. This would be his 201st. Thalen watched the destroyer's icon detach from the fleet formation on the tactical display, accelerating smoothly toward the unknown contact. Something nagged at the edge of his awareness, a whisper of unease he couldn't quite place. He pulled up the human file again, scanning deeper into the archived data. "Admiral," he said slowly, "the survey team noted something unusual about human psychology. They described the species as unusually adaptable, Shishashi, and prone to rapid technological advancement under pressure." "Every pre-FTL species thinks they're special, Officer Thalen." Kethris returned her attention to the broader tactical situation. "Those are standard observations. Rapid advancement still means centuries at their level, not decades. Our predictive models are extremely accurate." "Of course, Admiral." Thalen closed the file, but the unease remained. 127 cycles. More than a century in human years. How much could a species change in that time? Not enough to matter, surely. On his display, the destroyer's icon closed steadily on the unknown contact. Standard approach. Standard procedure. Low risk. Oh, everything was proceeding exactly as it should. The claw of retribution dropped out of hyperspace with practiced precision, its weapons arrays cold but ready, its sensors sweeping the designated coordinates with routine efficiency. Captain Helixar settled into his command throne, expecting to find some cobbled-together human vessel, perhaps a crude colony ship that had somehow achieved basic FTL through methods the survey had predicted they'd eventually discover. What his sensors found instead made his secondary heart skip a beat. "Report," Helixar commanded, his voice steady despite the wrongness of the data scrolling across his screens. "Contact confirmed, Captain," his sensor officer replied, but there was a tremor in her harmonics. "Distance, 40,000 kelix. Bearing unchanged. Vessel stationary. Size." A pause. How too long a pause. "Captain, the readings are inconsistent. Mass displacement suggests a vessel approximately 800 meters in length. Energy signature is..." She stopped, recalibrated, tried again. "Sir, I'm getting no coherent energy signature at all. The hull composition is absorbing our active scans." Helixar leaned forward. "Absorbing?" "Confirmed. Whatever their hull is made of, it's not in our materials database. Stealth properties are extraordinary. If they weren't stationary, we might have passed within weapons range without detecting them." 800 meters. The claw of retribution was 300 meters of hegemony military engineering, and it could obliterate most threats in this sector. But 800 meters was capital ship territory. Dreadnought class. And the file said low risk. Pre-FTL. Oh, chemical propulsion. "Open a channel. Standard warning protocol." The communications officer activated the transmission array, cycling through common diplomatic frequencies. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered hegemony-restricted space. State your designation and purpose immediately. Failure to comply will result in forced escort or neutralization." The response came in flawless hegemony standard, the accent so perfect it could have come from a native speaker. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Human Naval Ship Aegis Eternal. We are conducting authorized research operations in accordance with the Frontier Exploration Accords. Our presence here is neither unauthorized nor accidental." Helixar's crest flattened entirely. Frontier Exploration Accords? There was no such treaty with humanity. The humans didn't even have official contact status. "Captain Vasquez," he said carefully, "our records indicate your species does not possess faster-than-light capability. How did you arrive in this location?" Another pause. And when the human spoke again, Helixar detected something in her tone that his translator couldn't quite parse. Amusement? Pity? Captain, your records are significantly out of date. We've possessed FTL capability for 73 years, quantum jump drives for 41, and various stealth technologies for, well, longer than we've had official contact with the hegemony. 73 years. Helixar pulled up the threat assessment file, staring at the timestamp. 127 cycles ago. The math was simple and damning. They'd had FTL for decades before the survey was even conducted. So, Sensor Officer, Helixar said quietly, full tactical scan. I want to know what we're facing. The officer's claws moved frantically across her console. Captain, I'm attempting a full-spectrum analysis, but her voice rose an octave. Sir, gravitational readings are spiking around the human vessel. They're generating a localized field that shouldn't be possible with any known drive system. Energy containment it's orders of magnitude beyond our own reactor capabilities. Weapon status? Unable to determine. Their hull configuration doesn't match any known design philosophy. There are no visible hardpoints, no thermal signatures from capacitor banks, no... She stopped abruptly. Captain, recommendation immediate. We should call for backup. Helixar's pride warred with his survival instinct. Calling for backup against a single low-risk vessel would be embarrassing. But the numbers on his screen told a story his training couldn't ignore. Communications, priority channel to Hegemony Command. Tactical situation requires fleet support. Back at the command center, Thalen watched his display with growing horror as the destroyer's sensor data streamed in. Admiral Kethris stood rigid at her dais, all four eyes locked on the impossible readings. Officer Thalen, she said, her voice carrying the dangerous calm of a predator reassessing its prey. Access the Intelligence Ministry archives. Find every piece of information about Sol system activity for the last century. Everything. Thalen's claws blurred across his interface, diving deep into databases that most officers never touched. Survey reports, automated probe data, long-range observatory scans, merchant vessel encounters. The information was scattered, fragmented, filed under dozens of different classifications. And then he found it. Admiral, his voice cracked slightly, there's an updated threat assessment, filed 3 months ago by the Strategic Intelligence Division. It was submitted for review, but he felt his spiracles constrict. It's still in bureaucratic processing, awaiting approval from the Council for reclassification. Pull it up, now! The file materialized and its header blazed crimson. Critical threat level. Avoid direct engagement. Diplomatic contact only. Kethris read the summary in silence, her crest cycling through colors that indicated cascading emotional states: disbelief, anger, fear. They've been monitoring our space for decades, she read aloud. Stealth reconnaissance capabilities exceed hegemony detection thresholds by a factor of 20. Military projections suggests fleet strength in excess of 40,000 combat vessels. Technological advancement rate is exponential. Recommend immediate ambassadorial mission. And she stopped. 3 months. This has been sitting in review for 3 months. Admiral, we have additional ships arriving at the destroyer's position, Forim announced. Captain Helixar requested backup. I authorized a squadron. 12 vessels total. On the tactical display, icons converged on the single human ship. The Aegis Eternal remained perfectly stationary, like a predator so confident in its superiority it didn't need to move. Thalen opened another channel, his claws trembling. Admiral, I'm detecting communication traffic from the human vessel. Well, they're broadcasting on secured hegemony military frequencies, encrypted channels that should be classified. What are they saying? It's a message to our fleet, audio only. Thalen routed it to the command center's speakers. Captain Vasquez's voice filled the chamber, calm and measured, as if she were discussing weather patterns rather than facing down 12 hegemony warships. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Vasquez. We are aware of your fleet convergence. We are monitoring your tactical communications and have analyzed your weapons deployment protocols. We have no hostile intent, but we will defend ourselves if fired upon. I strongly recommend that your command center consult updated intelligence files regarding human capabilities before the situation escalates further." The channel closed. Kethris stared at the tactical display. 12 of the hegemony's finest warships, bristling with weapons that had pacified entire systems, now surrounding a single human vessel. A single human vessel that was calmly informing them it had cracked their military encryption. A single human vessel that wasn't even bothering to maneuver defensively. "Admiral," Vorum said quietly, "the squadron commander is requesting engagement authorization. They have weapons lock." Thalen's display erupted with new data. "Admiral, I'm detecting gravitational anomalies forming around the human ship. Whatever drive system they're using, it's generating—" His voice rose. "Multiple contacts. Sensors are showing interference patterns consistent with cloaked vessels. Dozens of them." "They were already here, Admiral." They've been here the entire time." The tactical display updated, uncertainty spheres blooming across the grid like deadly flowers. Possible contacts, probable contacts, each one potentially another human vessel, hidden, watching, waiting. Admiral Kethris stood frozen, the weight of her mistake crushing down like a collapsing star. Low risk. The file had said low risk, and now 12 ships faced an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't count, couldn't measure. "All vessels," she commanded, her voice carrying across every military channel in the sector. "Hold fire. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage the human vessel." Captain Vasquez's voice returned, still impossibly calm. "A wise decision, Admiral. Your updated threat assessment should be reaching your desk right about now." A priority alert flashed on Thalen's console. The reclassification file suddenly flagged as emergency clearance, finally released from bureaucratic purgatory. 3 months too late. The emergency file materialized across Admiral Kethris's holographic display, its crimson warnings pulsing like arterial blood. Thalen watched her scan the summary, watched her crest flatten completely against her skull, the instinctive response of prey recognizing a superior predator. "Officer Thalen," she said, her voice stripped of its earlier confidence, "put me through to the human captain. Direct channel, maximum encryption. Admiral, they've already cracked our encryption protocols." "I'm aware, officer. Establish the connection." The channel opened with a soft chime. Captain Vasquez's face appeared on the main display, human, disconcertingly similar to a dozen other species in broad structure, yet different in ways that the old survey files had failed to emphasize. Her eyes were predator-forward, her expression unreadable by hegemony standards, and she carried herself with the stillness of someone who had nothing to prove. "Admiral Kethris," Vasquez said, inclining her head slightly, "I appreciate your decision to hold fire. It saved lives on both sides." "Captain Vasquez," Kethris forced her crest upright, maintaining dignity even as her world collapsed around her. "Your presence here is unexpected. Our intelligence indicated your species was decades away from achieving the capability you've demonstrated. Your intelligence was 127 years old, Admiral." Vasquez's tone held no mockery, just statement of fact. In human terms, that's approximately 6 generations. But we've changed considerably in that time. On the tactical display, Thalen watched the uncertainty spheres multiply. The hegemony's most advanced sensors, designed to pierce any known stealth system, were failing catastrophically. Whatever the humans had done to their vessels, it was beyond anything in the technological database. "Captain," Kethris said carefully, "you mentioned monitoring our communications. For how long? Vasquez's expression shifted, a small movement at the corners of her mouth that the old survey files would have called a smile, though the updated assessment noted it could mean anything from genuine pleasure to predatory anticipation. 41 years, Admiral, since we achieved quantum jump capability. We've had listening posts in your territory, reconnaissance vessels observing your fleet movements, and intelligence operatives analyzing your strategic doctrines. We thought it prudent to understand our neighbors before making formal contact. Vorim's combat instincts overrode protocol. That's an act of war. You've been violating hegemony sovereignty for 4 decades. We've been observing, Vasquez corrected, her voice still maddeningly calm, much as your own intelligence services observe species you deem interesting. The difference is that your stealth technology isn't nearly as sophisticated as you believe it to be. We've known about your survey probes in Sol system for 90 years. We allowed them to gather data, limited data, but enough to maintain your comfort level. The implications hit Thalen like a physical blow. You wanted us to think you were primitive. We wanted you to think you had time, Vasquez said. Time to adjust to the reality of human presence in the galaxy. Time to realize that Earth wasn't the isolated, pre-FTL civilization your initial survey suggested. Unfortunately, she glanced at something off-screen. Your bureaucratic review process moved slower than we anticipated. The updated threat assessment was filed 3 months ago. We expected it to reach operational commanders within weeks. Admiral Kethris felt the pieces falling into place, each one a small detonation in her understanding of galactic power structures. You filed that assessment, your intelligence operatives, inside our systems. We have extensive experience with information operations, Admiral. Vasquez's expression remained neutral. The updated file was accurate, thorough, and submitted through proper intelligence ministry channels. So we even ensured it was flagged for priority review. What it encountered after that was entirely your own internal inefficiency. The squadron commander's voice crackled over the tactical channel. Admiral Kethris, request clarification. We have weapons lock on the primary target, but sensors are now indicating 47 possible additional contacts. Wait. Static burst across the channel. New contacts appearing. Estimate now exceeds 60 vessels. Admiral, we are severely outgunned if these readings are accurate. Thalen's claws trembled over his console. 60 human vessels against 12 hegemony warships. The math was devastating, but mathematics didn't account for technology gaps. If the humans were 41 years ahead in stealth alone, what other capabilities had they developed? Captain Vasquez, Kethris said, her pride crumbling like ancient stone. What is it you want from us? At this precise moment? Vasquez tilted her head slightly. We want you to understand the situation clearly before anyone makes a fatal mistake. Your squadron has weapons lock on my vessel. My vessel, Admiral, is a Titan-class dreadnought. Our defensive systems alone could survive your entire squadron's alpha strike. Our offensive capabilities, she paused, are something we'd prefer not to demonstrate. You're threatening us. I'm informing you. There's a difference. Vasquez's hands remained folded on the armrest of her command chair, posture relaxed to the point of insulting. Let me show you something. The Aegis Eternal remained stationary, but the space around it began to shimmer. Not weapons fire, not energy discharge. Reality itself seemed to fold. Mo and Thalen's sensors screamed warnings as gravitational readings spiked to impossible levels. What you're seeing, Vasquez narrated calmly, is a controlled demonstration of our gravitational manipulation technology. We can generate localized fields strong enough to deflect kinetic and energy weapons. We can create singularity events within hostile vessels. We can fold space in ways that make conventional targeting solutions problematic. On the tactical display, 12 hegemony warships found themselves suddenly encased in probability clouds. Their own sensors couldn't determine their exact position relative to the human vessel. Targeting computers cycled frantically, unable to achieve lock. "This is a defensive demonstration only," Vasquez continued. "Now, offensive capabilities." The cloaked contacts that had been uncertainty spheres suddenly resolved into crystal clarity. Not 60 human vessels, 143. They materialized on sensors simultaneously, their stealth systems dropping in perfect synchronization. A fleet that dwarfed anything the hegemony had stationed in this entire sector. Capital ships that made the Aegis Eternal look modest. Escort carriers bristling with launch bays, vessels of configurations that defied traditional classification. And every single one had been there, invisible, waiting. "We've been monitoring this intercept since your destroyer first entered the sector," Vasquez said. "We knew you'd send backup. We calculated squadron strength based on your standard protocols. We positioned assets accordingly. Admiral Kethris, we've been 3 steps ahead of you since the moment your sensors detected us." Vorim's combat programming collapsed into pure survival instinct. "Admiral, recommend immediate fleet withdrawal. We cannot engage these forces." But Thalen was reading deeper into the tactical data, his analytical mind cutting through the panic. "Admiral, look at their positioning. They're not in attack formation. They're surrounding us, but maintaining defensive spacing. They could have fired already, could have destroyed the squadron before we even knew they were there." "Correct, Officer Thalen." Vasquez's voice carried what might have been approval. "We don't want a war, Admiral. We want recognition. We want the galaxy to understand that humanity is Nwosum, not the primitive species in your outdated files. We want proper diplomatic channels. Shall we want a seat at the table?" Admiral Kethris forced herself to breathe slowly, controlling the hormonal cascade that urged her to flee. "And this display of force is a correction," Vasquez said simply. "Your file classified us as low risk. That classification endangered both our species. If your officers had approached us with that assumption in mind, if they'd attempted to force us to comply with threats or weapons fire, people would have died, Admiral. People who didn't deserve to die because of paperwork that should have been updated months ago." The human captain leaned forward slightly, and for the first time, Thalen saw something beyond calm professionalism in her expression. Something harder. "We let you underestimate us for 41 years because we weren't ready for first contact on your terms. We needed time to build. To prepare, to understand your power structures well enough to engage from a position of equality. That time is over. The galaxy needs to see us as we actually are." "And what are you?" Kethris asked, the question emerging before she could stop it. Vasquez's expression softened into something that might have been sad. "We're the species that survived ice ages, global wars, planetary disasters, and our own worst instincts to reach the stars. We're the species that looked at faster-than-light travel and quantum physics and gravitational manipulation and said, we can do better. We're the species that has been watching the hegemony, the concordat, the free fleets, all the great powers of this region, and learning from your successes and your failures." She stood, and behind her, at the bridge of the Aegis Eternal, became visible. Humans moving with practiced efficiency, holographic displays showing data streams that Thalen's training told him shouldn't be possible to process that quickly. "We're humanity, Admiral Kethris, and we're not low risk anymore. We never really were." The emergency session of the Hegemony Council convened within the hour, representatives flickering into holographic existence around the circular chamber with unprecedented speed. Admiral Kethris stood at the center podium, her crest cycled through colors she couldn't control, while the tactical data from the Aegis Eternal encounter played on repeat across every display. 143 human vessels. gravitational manipulation, quantum stealth, decades of undetected intelligence operations, low risk. The words hung in the chamber like an epitaph for hegemony supremacy. "Explain," High Counselor Verath demanded, his three voices harmonizing in barely controlled fury. "How a pre-FTL species became a peer-level power without our knowledge." Kethris kept her posture rigid, military discipline overriding the urge to collapse under the weight of institutional failure. "High Counselor, the humans were never pre-FTL. Our initial survey was conducted 127 cycles ago. At that time, they had achieved basic space travel, but not faster than light capability. Our projections indicated they would require centuries to reach FTL. Those projections were," she paused, forcing the words out, "catastrophically incorrect. Projections made by our best xenosociologists," another counselor interjected. "How, projections based on observed patterns across 400 surveyed species? What made the humans different? Adaptability?" The voice came from Intelligence Minister Korvan, who materialized at an auxiliary podium with files cascading around him. "I've spent the last 2 hours reviewing every piece of data we have on human development. They don't follow standard technological progression curves. They iterate, innovate, and implement at rates our models classified as statistically impossible. They achieved FTL 73 years after our survey, not centuries later, but decades. And we didn't notice?" Verath's skepticism was acidic. "We weren't looking," Korvan admitted. "The file said low risk. Low-risk species receive minimal monitoring resources. By the time automated systems flagged unusual activity in Sol system, the humans had already developed stealth capabilities sophisticated enough to hide from our observation networks. On Kethris's tactical display, the human fleet remained in position around her squadron, a constant reminder of how quickly superiority could evaporate. Captain Vasquez had opened a diplomatic channel, but made no further demands, content to let the hegemony wrestle with its new reality. The updated threat assessment, Kethris continued, pulling up the crimson-flagged file, was submitted 3 months ago by Strategic Intelligence Division. It detailed human capabilities accurately: advanced stealth, gravitational manipulation, extensive intelligence penetration of hegemony systems, fleet strength in the tens of thousands. It was submitted for council review and, she let the silence finish the sentence, languished in bureaucratic processing, Verath concluded bitterly. While we sat on the most significant intelligence update in a generation, humans positioned a fleet in our restricted space and waited for us to blunder into contact. Not just waiting, High Counselor. Korvan expanded a data stream that made several counselors recoil. According to their captain, they've been monitoring our communications, our fleet movements, our strategic planning for 41 years. They filed the updated assessment themselves, using operatives embedded within our intelligence ministry. They wanted us to know the truth. We simply failed to process it in time. The implications rippled through the chamber like shockwaves. Not only had humanity surpassed hegemony expectations, they'd done so while maintaining perfect intelligence dominance. And they'd known everything about the hegemony while revealing almost nothing about themselves. Admiral Kethris, Verath said quietly, dangerously, your squadron is currently surrounded by human forces. What is their current status? Standing by, High Counselor. No hostile action from either side. Captain Vasquez has indicated she's awaiting response from hegemony leadership before proceeding. She's requested formal diplomatic channels be established and suggested a mutual stand-down once proper protocols are in place. Suggested? Verath's crest flared. She suggests from a position of overwhelming tactical advantage. Yes, High Counselor. Across the sector, similar scenes played out in fleet commands and intelligence centers. The Concordat's observation network had detected the human fleet's appearance and transmitted emergency alerts. Free Fleet mercenary companies received warnings about potential new competition. Border systems updated their defense protocols, scrambling to determine if they had humans in their space too. The galactic intelligence apparatus, that vast network of sensors and analysts and predictive algorithms that had maintained stable power dynamics for centuries, discovered it had a massive blind spot, and that blind spot was filled with humans. In a secure facility deep in the hegemony's capital world, xenoanthropologists pulled every archived record of human behavior, searching for patterns they'd missed. The initial survey had noted certain psychological traits: persistence, creativity, aggression tempered by cooperation, and rapid learning capacity, uncomfortable tolerance for risk. The survey team had flagged these traits as noteworthy, but not alarming. Now those same traits read like a blueprint for exactly what had happened. Persistence. They'd developed FTL in decades rather than centuries. Creativity. They'd achieved stealth technology beyond hegemony capability. Aggression tempered by cooperation. They'd built a fleet powerful enough to challenge regional powers, but disciplined enough to wait for proper diplomatic context. Rapid learning. They'd studied hegemony systems for 41 years and exploited every weakness. Risk tolerance. They'd revealed themselves only when positioned to make refusal of their status impossible. "Admiral," Corvon said, pulling Kethris from her thoughts, "the Council requires your professional military assessment. Well, if we refused Captain Vasquez's request for diplomatic recognition, if we attempted to neutralize this threat through force, what would be the outcome?" Kethris had been dreading this question. She pulled up the tactical analysis her staff had been frantically compiling, numbers that painted a picture no military officer wanted to present. Based on observed capabilities, the human fleet in that sector could eliminate my squadron within minutes. Based on intelligence suggesting fleet strength in the tens of thousands, they could challenge any force we could bring to bear within a week's deployment time. Based on their demonstrated stealth and intelligence capabilities, we cannot guarantee we could locate or target their assets effectively, even with full fleet mobilization. She paused, letting the assessment sink in. "High Counselor, if we chose war, we would be engaging an enemy who knows our fleet dispositions, our communication protocols, our strategic doctrine, and our technological limitations. An enemy who has been preparing for this confrontation for 4 decades while we believed they were primitive. An enemy who chose to reveal themselves rather than strike from the shadows when they had every tactical advantage. Your recommendation? Open diplomatic channels immediately. Recognize their status as an interstellar power. Establish proper protocols before someone makes a mistake we can't take back." Kethris's crest settled into the colors of grim certainty. "High Counselor, we classified them as low risk. That was our failure, not theirs. They're offering us a chance to correct that failure peacefully. I strongly recommend we take it." The council chamber fell silent. Through the holographic displays, counselors exchanged glances that transcended species, the universal recognition of a paradigm shift that could not be reversed. "Very well," Vareth said finally. "Admiral Kethris, inform Captain Vasquez that the Hegemony Council accepts her request for formal diplomatic channels. We will arrange for ambassadorial contact within the standard time frame. Her fleet may maintain position, but must commit to non-aggression protocols." "Yes, High Counselor." "And Admiral?" Varath's 3 voices dropped to a single unified tone. "Ensure Captain Vasquez understands that while we acknowledge our intelligence failure, the Hegemony will be updating more than just her species threat assessment. Every aspect of our intelligence gathering, while our survey protocols, our technological assumptions, all of it will be reviewed. The humans exposed a systemic weakness. We will not allow such a blindness to occur again." Kethris opened the channel to the Aegis Eternal, where Captain Vasquez waited with the patience of someone who already knew how the conversation would end. Captain Vasquez, the Hegemony Council has accepted your request for formal diplomatic recognition. We are prepared to establish proper channels and protocols. Your fleet's presence is acknowledged as legitimate, and we invite ambassadorial contact at your earliest convenience. Vasquez's expression remained neutral, but Kethris thought she detected a hint of relief beneath the professionalism. Thank you, Admiral. We accept. Our diplomatic corps has been prepared for this moment for some time. When we can have representatives at your designated location within 72 hours. Captain, may I ask, how long were you prepared to wait? If our bureaucracy had delayed the file even longer? The human captain's smile this time was definitely genuine, though it carried notes Kethris couldn't quite interpret. As long as necessary, Admiral. We're very good at waiting, and watching, and learning. The channel closed, and across the sector, human vessels began a slow, coordinated withdrawal. Not retreating, making space, demonstrating control, showing that they could disappear as easily as they'd appeared, leaving behind the terrifying knowledge that they'd always been there, invisible, patient, ready. Thalen watched the tactical display as uncertainty spheres bloomed again where human ships had been. They were going back into stealth, fading from sensors like ghosts that had chosen to reveal themselves for one brief, devastating moment. Officer Thalen, Admiral Kethris said quietly, make a note in the updated file. Yes, Admiral? Threat assessment confirmed. But add a personal observation. Humanity didn't destroy us when they could have. They revealed themselves to prevent conflict, not initiate it. They wanted recognition, not conquest. She stared at the empty space where the human fleet had been. Perhaps that's the most dangerous thing about them. They could have been our enemies. Instead, they've chosen to be something far more complicated. Our equals, 1316. The file update propagated across the Galactic Intelligence Network within hours, cascading through databases with override priority that bypassed every bureaucratic checkpoint that had failed before. In every species with monitoring capabilities, every government with strategic interests, every military command with border concerns received the same update simultaneously. Species designation, humanity. Origin, Sol system, Terra/Earth. Threat level, critical. Peer power status. Diplomatic status, active contact. Ambassadorial protocols required. Military assessment. Assume parity or superiority until demonstrated otherwise. In the command center, Thalen read the new file for the 7th time, each pass revealing details that transformed his understanding of the galaxy's power structure. Human technological capabilities, human strategic doctrine, human intelligence operations. 41 years of them, meticulously documented now that they had chosen to reveal themselves. The section on human psychology had been completely rewritten. And where the old survey had used words like primitive and developing, the new assessment used terms like adaptive apex species and exponential advancement curve. One passage stood out, flagged by the Strategic Intelligence Division as critical for all personnel. Humanity possesses an unusual capacity for patient, long-term strategic planning combined with rapid tactical adaptation. They will observe, analyze, and prepare for extended periods before acting. When they do act, they do so from positions of overwhelming advantage carefully constructed over years or decades. Underestimating their capabilities or intentions is a potentially civilization-ending mistake. Officer Thalen, Admiral Kethris said, approaching his station with the measured gait of someone still processing defeat that looked like diplomacy. The human ambassadorial delegation arrives tomorrow. The Council has assigned me as military liaison. An honor, Admiral. A penance, more likely. Kethris's crest cycled through rueful colors. But perhaps appropriate. I was present for the failure. I should be present for the correction. 3 solar systems away, Captain Elena Vasquez stood in her ready room aboard the Aegis Eternal, reviewing reports from the diplomatic corps. The meeting with hegemony leadership would set the tone for humanity's introduction to galactic politics, a moment 73 years in the making, carefully orchestrated across 4 decades of patient preparation. Her first officer, Commander Zhang, entered with 2 glasses of something that approximated coffee. The fleet's secured from action stations. All vessels have returned to stealth protocols. The hegemony's been trying to track us for the past 6 hours. Success rate, approximately 4%. Let them track that 4%, Vasquez said, accepting the glass. They need to know we're still here without feeling completely blind. It's a balance. Was it worth it? The reveal, I mean. We could have maintained our advantage for years longer. Vasquez moved to the viewport, where stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the political theater playing out in their light. Commander, we've been in the shadows long enough. Intelligence operations are useful, but they're not sustainable as permanent policy. Eventually, someone would have detected us, or we would have needed to act in a way that exposed our presence. Better to reveal ourselves on our terms, from a position of strength, and than to be discovered and forced to justify decades of covert operations. The hegemony's calling it the greatest intelligence failure in their history. It was, Vasquez agreed, but it was also their bureaucracy working exactly as designed, slow, cautious, layered with oversight. In peacetime, those are virtues. When situations change rapidly, they become fatal flaws. We didn't defeat the hegemony militarily, Commander. We defeated their assumptions about how fast a civilization could advance. Zhang studied his captain thoughtfully. You think other species will update faster now? I guarantee it. Every intelligence service in this sector is reviewing their survey files, recalculating projection models, increasing monitoring on species they classified as low priority. And we've just made the galaxy significantly more paranoid. She smiled slightly. Which makes us safer, ironically. Hard to be underestimated when everyone's overestimating you instead. And if they'd called our bluff? If the hegemony had decided to fight? Vasquez's expression hardened. Commander, we didn't bluff. Every capability we demonstrated was real. Every vessel they detected was present and operational. If the hegemony had chosen violence, we would have defended ourselves and won decisively. But we would have also lost the opportunity for peaceful integration, lost potential allies, lost the moral high ground we spent 41 years securing. She turned from the viewport. War was always an option, Commander. It was never the preference. The next morning, hegemony time. The human diplomatic vessel dropped out of quantum jump precisely on schedule. It was smaller than the Aegis Eternal, unarmed as far as hegemony sensors could determine, and broadcasting peaceful intentions on every available frequency. Thailand monitored its approach, noting the precision of its navigation, the efficiency of its communication protocols, the way it moved through space with the confidence of a species that had been traveling the stars for generations rather than decades. The delegation that emerged carried themselves with the same calm competence Captain Vasquez had displayed. Humans in formal attire that managed to look both alien and somehow universal, led by Ambassador Chen, whose credentials indicated expertise in first contact protocols and interstellar law. Admiral Kethris met them in the Council's diplomatic reception hall, a space designed to impress with its soaring architecture and historical significance. The humans paused at the entrance, taking in the grandeur with what Kethris was learning to recognize as analytical appreciation rather than intimidation. Ambassador Chen, Kethris greeted, executing the formal gesture of welcome with careful precision. On behalf of the Hegemony Council, I welcome humanity to diplomatic recognition. Admiral Kethris? Chen's response was equally formal, his hegemony standard flawless. On behalf of the United Human Nations and the people of Earth, we accept your welcome and offer our commitment to peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding." The protocols proceeded smoothly, almost anticlimactically, after the drama of first contact. Treaties were outlined, boundaries were discussed, technology exchange proposals were presented with careful reciprocity. Throughout it all, the humans maintained their pattern of demonstrating competence without arrogance, capability without threat. But in a private moment, after formal sessions concluded and before evening diplomatic receptions began, Chen found Kethris on an observation deck overlooking the capital city's lights. "You're wondering why we did it this way," Chen said, not quite a question. Kethris's crest cycled honestly. "Your methods were dramatic. You could have revealed yourselves through normal diplomatic channels. Instead, you orchestrated a confrontation that exposed our intelligence failures and demonstrated military superiority. It was effective, but not subtle. Subtlety wasn't the goal, Admiral. Understanding was." Chen joined her at the railing, looking out over the alien cityscape. "For 41 years, we watched. We learned your languages, your customs, your power structures. We mapped your territory, analyzed your military capabilities, studied your diplomatic history. And in all that observation, we identified one consistent pattern. Species earn respect in galactic politics through demonstrated capability, not potential. You engineered a scenario where we would underestimate you, then proved us catastrophically wrong. We allowed a scenario where your existing underestimation could be corrected in a controlled context," Chen corrected gently. "The file that said we were low risk? It was accurate for its time. We weren't lying by maintaining that classification. We were simply, not updating it as aggressively as we could have. When we were ready for contact, we ensured the update reached your systems. What happened after that was entirely your bureaucracy's choice." Kethris felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "You gave us every chance to correct our mistake before forcing confrontation. We did. The file sat in review for 3 months. We waited, we monitored. We knew the moment Captain Helixar's destroyer entered sensor range, and we knew you'd be operating on 127-year-old data. We could have withdrawn, avoided contact, given you more time. Instead, we stayed. We revealed ourselves. We forced the correction." Chen's expression carried something that might have been regret. Because every day that file remained unupdated was a day someone could have died from a preventable misunderstanding. You staged a crisis to save lives. We revealed a truth to prevent a tragedy. There's a difference. Chen turned to face her fully. "Admiral, humanity learned a long time ago that assumptions kill. Assumptions about enemies, assumptions about allies, assumptions about what's possible or impossible. Your species assumed we were primitive. That assumption was comfortable, safe, allowed you to categorize us and move on to other priorities. But assumptions don't survive contact with reality. And now the galaxy knows," Kethris said quietly, "that humanity is not what we assumed." "Now the galaxy knows to check their assumptions," Chen corrected. "About us, yes. But also about every other species they've classified as low priority, low risk, or low capability. You said it yourself in your report. We exposed a systemic weakness. Not in your military. In your worldview." Below them, the city lights pulsed in patterns that marked shift changes, transit schedules, the ordinary rhythms of civilization. Somewhere in that vast metropolis, intelligence analysts were reviewing every survey file, every threat assessment, every comfortable assumption about who mattered in galactic affairs. Humanity had broken something, not through conquest, but through revelation. They'd shattered the illusion that technological development followed predictable curves, that intelligence networks caught every significant change, that bureaucracy could safely delay urgent updates. They'd proven that low risk was a temporary classification, that primitiveness was a transitional state, and that any species dismissed today might become a pure power tomorrow. "Ambassador," Kethris said as Chen prepared to leave, "one final question. How many other human fleets are out there? How much of your capability did we actually see?" Chen's smile was answer enough. "Assume we showed you enough to ensure respect, Admiral, and assume we kept enough in reserve to ensure survival. Beyond that?" He glanced at the stars visible through the observation dome. "Let's just say humanity believes in contingency planning." He departed, leaving Kethris alone with the implications. Thalen found her there an hour later, still staring at the stars, her crest cycling through colors that indicated deep thought. "Admiral, the Council requests final assessments for tomorrow's strategic review." "Tell them this, Officer Thalen." Kethris's voice carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "Tell them we encountered humanity at the exact moment they wanted us to encounter them. Tell them every detail of that encounter was orchestrated to teach us specific lessons about our failures. Tell them the humans could have remained hidden, could have struck from the shadows, could have taken everything we didn't know they could reach." She turned from the window, her crest settling into the colors of grim respect. "And tell them that humanity chose to give us a chance to adapt. They revealed themselves not to conquer us, but to ensure we never made the fatal mistake of assuming they were conquered." The file was updated too late to prevent confrontation, but just in time to prevent war. That precision, Officer Thalen, tells you everything you need to know about the species we're dealing with. What should I tell them about future human intentions? Kethris returned her gaze to the stars, where quantum jump signatures flickered like predator eyes in the darkness. Human vessels moving through space that no longer belonged exclusively to species who'd claimed it first. Tell them humanity is exactly what they claim to be, a species that reached the stars despite every obstacle. And tell them that low risk was never about humanity. It was about us, about our comfort, our assumptions, our refusal to believe the galaxy could change faster than our files could update. She logged out of the observation deck, leaving Thalen to file his report, behind them in databases across civilized space. The file remained open, subject line glowing with permanent priority. Humanity, threat assessment updated. But in the margins, accessible only to the highest intelligence clearances, a single note had been added by Strategic Intelligence Division. Classification accuracy depends on information currency. Failure to update cost us supremacy we assumed was permanent. Recommend eternal vigilance. The galaxy contains approximately 47 species currently classified as low risk, with sufficient time since last survey to potentially replicate human advancement curve. Monitoring protocols updated accordingly. The age of comfortable certainty has ended. What do you think about this clash between alien arrogance and human power? Share your thoughts below, and remember to like and subscribe for more HFY stories.